Good evening and welcome to tonight's coverage of the Continental Racing League Season 2 Round 3, live exclusively here on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark. You join us in uncharacteristic conditions, as one can see in front of your very eyes here in Austin, Texas, at the Circuit of the Americas. One of the newest tracks on the block here on ACC, founded in 2010 and opened its doors in 2012. It was designed as a first purpose-built destination for Grand Prix racing in the United States, becoming the first venue since the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to hold the United States Grand Prix, adding itself to the calendar in 2012. It sees racing under Grand Prix regulations in both 2 and 4 wheels, with MotoGP having joined the year after as the Grand Prix of the Americas in 2013. As of 2026, both of them run as the United States Grand Prix. Outside of Grand Prix racing, it sees a primarily national assortment of competition from Moto America, Trans Am, GT World Challenge America, and the NASCAR Cup and O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series. But recent introductions onto the international stage introduces the FIA World Endurance Championship with the reintroduction of the Lone Star Le Mans, an event that originally ran from 2013 to 2017, but was suspended following the COVID-19 pandemic. It returned to the calendar only 2 years ago in 2024 and is a continued fixture of the WEC season. It will now see next year the introduction of both Formula E and the Intercontinental GT Challenge. The Intercontinental GT Challenge introducing the Texas 8 Hour on its 2027 calendar, and Formula E adding the Circuit of the Americas as one of 3 new purpose-built destinations, alongside Zandvoort and Brands Hatch onto its calendar, this time coming up as the Austin E-Prix. A circuit of mixed opinions then, designed as an almost greatest hits album of various different iconic Grand Prix circuits, drawing clear inspiration from circuits like Silverstone, Interlagos, Hockenheimring, as well as circuits like Bud, Bahrain, and Istanbul Park. The Circuit of the Americas is somewhat described by many as a hodgepodge of various different conflicting designs that creates a challenging and varied circuit suitable for all audiences. And that is where we'll find ourselves here. It's always bigger in Texas, and this is a staggering circuit. 3.4 miles, that's just over 5.5 kilometers, and 20 turns of FIA Grade 1 are set to put their drivers through the paces today here in our first wet race of the season. Something that is very rarely sighted, one may recall, here at the Circuit of the Americas, as a track that almost strategically places itself in the dry summer season for most series of motorsports. It's very rare to catch wet racing at all at the Circuit of the Americas, but rain isn't an impossibility here in Texas, as one of the hotter states in America. When it rains, it really does pour around here, and the drivers will be really quite soggy after today's event as we head in towards round 3 of the championship, reeling away from what has been 3 races so far over 2 rounds of the championship, with the first opening round being in Imola at the 70-minute race at the start of the season there. I just lost my train of thought. And then the doubleheader following thereafter in Valencia. So far this season seen wins from Carlos Diesch and Mark Burton, with Diesch taking 2, Burton a singular win so far this season. And as far as that concerns the Drivers' Championship standings, taking a look into things at the moment, Diesch continues to lead over Burton, these two separated by 11 points in the championship. Yuya Oya of Audi Sport Team Apex in 3rd with 160 points. Smelly Hippie of Stinkin' Rich Lamborghini find themselves 4th with 147 points, rounding out the top 5 is Oya's teammate Connor Brennan in 5th place with 126 points. Humbell Motorsports' Samuel Bell finds himself in 6th ahead of Daniel Comendi in 7th. Guy Rayfield of Vanguard Motorsports in 8th, up and ahead of Reese Humphreys in 9th. Rounding out the top 10 is CRT GTR's Mark Taylor with 93 points. Taking a look in towards the championship standings on the manufacturers and teams front, taking a look at the teams to see that Audi Sport Team Apex, courtesy of Yuya Oya and Connor Brennan, have now taken the lead successfully over Whale Racing's Carlos Diesch and Fake Galaxy, both of which I'm told are no-shows for today's event. CRT Team Comac make 3rd place ahead of Humbell in 4th. CRT GTR now up into the top 5 after a very, very solid round in Valencia last week. Vanguard Motorsports in 6th with Stinkin' Rich in 7th. Onad Racing joined the top 10 from 8th. Everquip in 9th, and the Mustang team round out the top 10. In the manufacturer standings, Mercedes have yet to go defeated in this championship through the efforts of both Diesch and Burton. Mercedes has yet to lose a race so far. 375 points strong. Audi and Ferrari now make the podium, with the latter of two seeing a sizable leap since Valencia, with Nissan now 4th behind them, McLaren 5th, Lamborghini 6th, and recent drops there see Ford and Porsche down to the back 2 positions of the manufacturer's standings. You catch us here in the last 10 minutes or so of free practice. Coming up around the corner is 20 minutes of qualifying and 17 minutes of racing, a single mandatory pit stop, we're told, for tyres over the course of round 3 of the championship. Back in with the pit lane then, we saw from Reese Humphries before we went into the technical talks that he's currently second in a Mercedes 1-2, with Mark Burton, Valencia's race 1 winner, taking the fastest time so far. We saw just a moment ago, interceding the pair of them, Yuya Oya, the challenger from Audi. Daniel Comendi, having seen Ferrari up to a very solid performance this season, now marks 3rd on the grid here in free practice. Currently 18 cars in attendance. Multiple sign-outs, though, on the run in towards qualifying today. And of course, as we mentioned, among them was both the Whale Racing Mercedes cars of Carlos Disch and Fake Galaxy. So that really does leave the throne open here on the upcoming run into the first wet race of the season of 2, the other being at Brands Hatch later in August. And this is going to be quite the challenge for these drivers. It's been researched many a time here, the Circuit of the Americas, by many on the ground here in ACC, and it's been found that the track limits, one of its major talking points, aren't an accurate reflection of how they are in the GT World Challenge America Series. So the drivers are really playing against a stacked set of cards for the run in towards qualifying today, with a lack of control under wet conditions and a track with ever stricter racing parameters and track limits, so on and so forth. The drivers are really going to be up against it. And survival may become the utmost priority for these drivers today over simple pace alone. Of course, it will help plenty for the drivers up towards the front of the field, not having to deal with the spray and tremendous amounts of it kicked up by these GT3s when they start further in the midfield or towards the back of the grid. That will be the consideration here for many a driver. As we head into the last 3 minutes of free practice, coming up around the corner then will be qualifying. 20 minutes of which to set the stage here for the run in towards round 3 of the championship. It is a very bizarre thing to see the Circuit of the Americas drenched in rainfall. A very, very bizarre thing. It would be like seeing a wet race in Bahrain or Yas Marina. It's just something that doesn't stand out as a characteristic often seen at a venue like this, often where we see the majority of the races here at the Circuit of the Americas in the hotter summer season. We will find ourselves up against very peculiar odds as we see passing up there past one of the main features of the Circuit of the Americas, its massive 251-foot observation tower. And it's really a go big or go home mentality when they came to designing the Circuit of the Americas. There is no end to the creativity of their current organizers in introducing brand new technology to the circuit. Now, of course, the circuit itself has remained mostly the same since its introduction to mainline racing in 2012, with the United States Grand Prix and Formula One and all of its various constituent series joining along thereafter. But we see a lot of what's been going on at COTA has been going on inside the track. Since its construction in 2012, it's been a case where multiple new venues have cropped up on the inside of the Circuit of the Americas. And of course, we mentioned that 251-foot observation tower that overlooks one of 2 music venues inside the Circuit of the Americas, the other of which being the Germania Insurance Amphitheater and the Germania Insurance Superstage, the latter of which was constructed by ESPN for the 2015 Austin X Games. Both of these serve as open-air amphitheaters for use in concerts and often are used as concert centers during the United States Grand Prix and various major series to run here at the Circuit of the Americas year on year. It also, for a while, had a rallycross configuration used in various rallycross championships. It is one that still exists, but is a semi-temporary fixture of the track. One of the most unique ones here, as we continue to watch on with Comendi during this time, just before we get into what's qualifying, I really wanted to bring this up on stream, because doing the research in towards this circuit, it is quite an interesting little location, because it is certainly the first I've heard of it for a good while that a circuit is making a theme park inside its quarters, and COTA Land is its name at the moment. It was first opened, it was first planned in 2021. It's set to fully open this year in 2026, complete with 11 new flat rides and a brand new roller coaster to go alongside it. They've already, since 2021, constructed 4 coasters. Sorry, since 2020, constructed 4 coasters. Skyflyer, the Texas Wildcat, the Big Apple, and the Circuit Breaker. The latest will be called the Palindrome and will be an extreme class of roller coaster, an infinity coaster with a vertical lift and turntable styling. I thought that was quite interesting to speak about here on this circuit because it is really epitomizing everything that encapsulates American motorsports. It is this wonderful mishmash of various different entertainment forms to be this all-in-one package for both racing and fun. I just thought it was a curious little circuit to study on the run in towards today's round of the championship. Of course, this won't pertain much to the drivers on track, as much as many of them would rather get out of the car in conditions like these and go on a theme park ride. They won't have the luxury of that today. They'll face off against wrathful rainfall here in Austin, Texas. Across the line at the end of the free practice session, we see then from Comendi third at the end of this session. Ferrari still on the up and up following Valencia at round 2 of the championship. Nearest to the line here will be the Stranger Team's number 19 Mustang, Michael Bonar. We'll get a look into what's balance of performance on the run in towards qualifying today. You can see, though, the Fords are struggling on home turf. They've seen a recent performance downturn following Valencia. They're towards the back of the standings now in the Manufacturers' Championship. Bonar down towards the line. He's one of 2 Mustangs registered to today's round of the championship. Across the line stays 9th. Nearest is the number, I believe it is actually the number 311. Here, that being Colin Beattie of CRT Team Comac. His teammate Mark Burton at the head of the field, that number 57, fastest at the end of free practice, 2 minutes 19.622. BD nearest. Mercedes still looking strong and have yet to lose a race so far this season. Could today be the trying conditions that breaks their implacable tread in this championship? We see there, that's trouble for BD into the wall after turn 19. That curve there just caught him out right at the very end of his flying lap there. That sadly puts an end to things a little early for him there at the end of free practice, where he was looking to put one more time in before we head up in towards qualifying. He'll stay 7th. The end of this session. 656 nearest. On his way out through turns 17 and 18. Eduardo Odoni in the 656 Mustang down through to turn 19, the same area that just caught out Colin Beattie. Out through turn 19 in towards turn 20. He's among the last to head to the line, then the other being, by looks of it, the 888, Matthew G. Taylor from behind him of CRT GTR. Across the line goes Odoni. No time set at the end of this session, so the 888 will finish off free practice as we head up in towards qualifying. Across the line he goes, heading up in towards quali now. You can see conditions a little bit on the fairer side. We have 20 minutes of qualifying now underway. You can see a hesitance from the grid at the moment. So we see first looking to get out among the fray is Reese Humphreys, the number 12 of Humbell Racing. So he'll be the first out on the charge here, and whilst he makes his way to the exit of this slightly larger pit lane than one would expect at a track like the Circuit of the Americas, quite a long area here, so a drive-through would be killer for these drivers today. Let's take a look at the balance of performance. The rest of the grid starts to form up behind him for the run in towards qualifying today. Lamborghini find themselves the only manufacturer gaining any kind of advantage for the run in towards round 3 of the championship. They're 12 kilos lighter of a factory weight, according to pitskill.io balance of performance. Nissan will be neutral, so nothing gained nor lost for the GTR Nismo. Then into weight gain, McLaren will gain 1 kilo. Mercedes on your screens at the moment will gain 3. Ferrari gaining 4, Ford gaining 5, Audi gaining 7, and Porsche really on the short end with a staggering 20 kilo additional ballast. The Porsche's really going to be up against it in this round, but it is worth noting for Porsche, and this is a rather curious bit, Porsche seems to thrive rather well as it would stand in wet conditions. Now, these are slightly less heavy rainfall than what we saw over the course of free practice, no mistaking that. On board here with Humphreys. I'll leave you on board with the sound here of that 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine as he makes his way down the back straight, over half a mile's worth of FIA Grade 1. We'll be back to you in just a moment before the start of the track tour. So on board here with Reese Humphries, the first among the fray at the Circuit of the Americas for qualifying for round 3 of the championship. Behind him is Mark Taylor in the 555 CRT GTR. Up through to turn 20 we go then for the start of the track tour here at the Circuit of the Americas. So following on board with the number 12, making our way uphill in towards turn 1. This is known as Big Red, named after Red McCombs, one of the main figures behind the construction of the Circuit of the Americas. Memorialized here at turn 1, down through to turn 2, into this opening sector here. Now, we of course mentioned this track was designed as almost a greatest hits track of various different iconic Grand Prix destinations. So you can see this opening section quite heavily inspired by Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel at Silverstone as we make our way up through. Now this long sweeping right-hander at turn 6, up towards turn 7, sharp here on the left. Easy to get caught out in that section. Through to turn 8, then to turn 9. And then this little sharp left-hander here at turn 10 as we drop down over the crest in towards turn 11. You'll note, in spite of its enormous size, there is a great sense of verticality here at the Circuit of the Americas, and we see a big lead there over the curb at turn 11. As we head on to this over half a mile's worth of back straight, we see moving over to allow Mark Taylor on through is that of Reese Humphries. Let's go to catch on board with the 555. As we follow now up towards one of our major overtaking spots on track. This is going to be turn 12 on board here with the 555. Through now to a sharp right-hander coming up at turn 13 and 14. And up in towards turns 15 and 16 in a moment's time here. You'll note this area, very clear inspiration by turns 9 and 10 at the Bahrain International Circuit as it loops back in on itself into this straightaway section. But unlike Bahrain, that doesn't keep up for particularly long as we're straight in towards the run of turns 17 and 18. This is almost inspired by, some could say, either, I would probably say is closest would be Qatar. The Lusail International Circuit has got a very close section like that. Whichever came first is the one that's copying the other one is obviously copying the other. And through turn 19 in towards turn 20. You see, though, on the wet line, Taylor's struggling a little bit there, but he keeps it within the white lines. Will it be valid, though, as he crosses as the first time on the charts today? 2 minutes 17.217. But 2:17.217. As it would stand there from the 555. Nearest to the line from behind it would be the number 1, Rika Takanashi of S3MP. But rolling on by there ahead of them goes the number 21. That's Samuel Bell. So the other half of the Humbell Racing team across the line will be nearest to the line, followed by the Ferrari. Number 21 across the line, 1.3 seconds off the beat. Nearest from behind is the number 311, Colin Beattie. Then following them is Sean Moore. It's worth noting for Moore, that's a special livery, we're told, on the ever-equipped Ferrari. Now, I'm pretty certain we're in the absence of Jamie Curtin for tonight's event. So it's just Moore by himself, and we're told that this livery is a special livery for the upcoming England-Norway match in the World Cup. So showing his expression of support for England's there with the white and red of the St George's Cross. Cross the line a moment ago, Mark Burton, now fastest. 2:15.802. Chase Hamilton goes second. So Mark Taylor now down to third. Connor Brennan makes fourth, and Michael Bonar rounds out the top 5. That's now recently displaced for Bonar, now down out of the top 5 as Eduardo Odoni goes to fourth. Across the line from behind, that was the Lamborghini, I believe there, of, yes, that is Hippie, on his way up towards turn 1. His teammate Richie Nielsen's currently in the pit lane. And these two Lamborghinis have got to have double time over the course of this session because they've got the best advantage in-house. Now fastest in the session, Finland's Yuya Oja and the number 11 Audi Sport Team Apex car. They've now taken the lead of the team's championship. They're stepping ever closer to leading the manufacturer's championship away from Mercedes. This is the real challenger to Mercedes' stranglehold on competition in the early rounds of Season 2, where they have so far gone undefeated. This one stands as the arbiter of whether that statistic remains. He's not alone, though. It has been German-led dominance for the manufacturers for the longest time, up until recently, that saw the introduction into the mix of Ferrari into the championship standings. We see for Chase Hamilton now fourth. Speaking of Ferrari, here's Daniel Comendi to third. As it stands there, he's 18 thousandths away from Mark Burton in second, who is in turn 740 thousandths from Oja. In the lead of this qualifying session, the 555, Mark Taylor across the line, now back into the top 5 for Nissan. Nearest is the number 21. So Samuel Bell on his way through. Following him is the 311. That's Colin Beattie. Bell from 9th goes 6th. Beattie now off the exit of turn 20 goes from 12th to 9th. Behind them, the 888. And I believe also there, the number 10, Conor Brennan, joins along with them, goes from 8th to 6th. Now ahead of Bell and O'Doney. Number 19 is Nearest. That will be having a glance there for Michael Bonar from 10th on track at the moment. Now he would have needed about roughly about 1.2 seconds there to get up onto Colin Beattie. Nothing found in that last go. We did see though for Mark Burton, new fastest time, 2 minutes 14.580. He's nearly a full half second there over Yuya Oya in second. Oya off the exit of turn 18 and towards turn 19 and 20. Maneuverability will be at the forefront of concern in trying conditions like these, but it's a double-edged sword when one considers the flaws of the Audi Lamborghini platform. It's a shared burden between both the R8 and the Huracan, despite their differences in terms of overall handling. The mid-engined disposition they share makes them notably unstable on loose surfaces. Across the line, now 48 thousandths in the clear. Oya in the lead, 2 minutes 14.532. Worth noting as well, another of the V10s, Smelly Hippie with the number 420 Lamborghini of Stinkin' Rich. Third in the session, 1.2 seconds off the mark there. He's 3 thousandths over this one. Not 3 thousandths, 300ths, I should say, over Kemendi. Nearest to the line, the number 12. So we're going to catch on board here. Rhys Humphries, the man who started off our tour of the track. Sadly did not himself get to see a time on the charts after trouble out of turn 11. Down across the line though, Humphries now to 8th. And as it stands to be the case, he's 104 thousandths from Richard Claffey in 7th place for Porsche. Now, Porsche, it is worth noting here, in spite of their detriments under BOP, do seem to be performing quite well in these wet conditions. We've mentioned it before. Porsche are somewhat of the dark horses for wet racing. So too has been the claim we've made over the years for Aston Martin, to a mixture of successes. See at the moment then for the number 48, this is Chase Hamilton on his way down through to turn, looking here, turns 16. Yes, turns 15 and 16, I should say here. Seeing with Chase Hamilton. So close to the chances right now of a top 5. He's about 6/10ths out off of Kemendi in 5th. And then that would only be a little bit of a light skip ahead to find him in a possible 4th by about 300ths in between 4th and 5th as it stands right now. 9.5 minutes left to go, so we're over the halfway mark in this qualifying session. We do note new fastest time, 2 minutes 14.515 by Mark Burton. He's 17 thousandths now over Oya in second. Hamilton to third. A very solid hustle there by Freeman Sim Racing's number 48, Chase Hamilton, now marks up a 3rd place spot on track. Porsche could be within a chance. Hippie says otherwise. Stinking Rich now to 3rd. The 420 Lamborghini up over the number 48 Porsche. Lamborghini looking to prove a point here, that can they go faster than their sister team, the Audis, with the R8 LMS Evo 2. Speaking of, Yuya Oya now fastest, 2 minutes 13.942. So we break into the ceiling now of the 2:13s, courtesy of the Finn in the number 11. Now 573 thousandths, just over half a second as it would stand over Mark Burton, now 2nd in this session. Number 12 is Nearest, so Humphries, we saw not long ago into the top 10. Better late than never was the case on his first valid time of today's session. Where can he take it from there? He's 104 thousandths to 8th. Not too far off then the chances, as it would stand 3/10ths to 7th, courtesy of the 555 of Mark Taylor. Let's see where he finds himself after this lap from 9th. Crossed the line to 7th, so up and ahead there are Mark Taylor. And now within arm's distance of Kemendi on the 3rd row. Nearest is the 656. Here comes Eduardo O'Doney. Down through turn 19. Back into the pit lane there, I believe, went the 888. That was Matthew G. Taylor, 16th in the session thus far. Down through to turn 20 we go. O'Doney 13th. And that last lap just gone. Nearest to the line from behind will be the number 93 and the number 10. So that comprises right now Richard Claffey and Conor Brennan. Claffey 9th at the moment as he crosses the line. Where does he find himself next? 9th stays there. As for Brennan, What's going to be the case here for the number 10? Goes up to 8th, so ahead of Claffey and Taylor. Now onto that 4th row in the number 10 Audi. His teammate in the number 11 leads the charge by over half a second to Burton in second. Speaking of, you can see there, the CRT team Comac number 57 is on its way out. Following him is the number 11. Right now, the V10 reigns supreme. 1 and 3 as it would stand right now for the V10 engine, courtesy of Audi and Lamborghini. Speaking of, we see here for Smelly Hippie on his way down to the line. Currently 3rd, and he does find an improvement, so stepping ever closer into the chances to fight on that front row. I'd certainly say keep an eye out for this one on the run in towards today's race. Burton now finds himself down to 3rd as Daniel Comendi of Ferrari goes to 2nd. This is quite the interesting development now. Ferrari having recently gone up to 3rd in the Manufacturers' Championship. It was a sizable leap in position after Valencia last week. Comendi spearheading the charge, one of 3 Ferraris on track, the other being Sean Moore and Rika Takahashi. Comendi looks to go toe-to-toe with Yuya Oyo. Now, of course, in the absence of what has been Carlos Dish and the Whale Racing team's dominance on this championship, while they still stand at the team's championship podium, they have recently lost that lead off to Audi Sport Team Apex. Dish still leads in the Drivers' Championship. There is plenty of position to be filled here in the absence of both of the dominant Mercedes cars, with only one of those race winners remaining, Mark Burton. He'll be the one to watch and the one to catch over the course of this 70-minute race. Burton will be hunting down a 2nd victory this season. Meanwhile, we see up at the head of it, it could be Oyo v Comendi. I would say it'd be naive not to consider the whole of that top 5 in the opening scrim for the run-up towards turn 1 at Big Red. Nearest 656, that'll be for Eduardo Odoni from 13th. And by looks of it, stays where he is. From behind him goes the number 21. A recent leap there for Samuel Bell, now into the top 5. And puts himself, by looks of it there, looking at it, about 18,000 up over that of Chase Hamilton. Across the line a moment ago, Richard Claffey was into that top 5, then Connor Brennan. So there is really quite a squabble amongst drivers here to put themselves in a top 5 starting position. We see things only get worse there for Claffey as he drops not 1 but 2 positions, with Mark Taylor now to 6th, with CRT GTR having jumped their way up to the middle of the team's championship after Valencia last week. The 555 and the 888 of the Taylors, Mark and Matthew G, have done remarkably well to put Nissan back in good stead. Nissan, I believe, now 4th, the manufacturer's standings, so that's a significant leap from where they stood before Valencia. Nearest to the line a moment ago was Burton, and this is a rather precarious spot for Mark Burton. He's got 4.5 minutes left to go. Functionally speaking, the cusp of about maybe 3 laps. If he can really push for it, he'll have only a few seconds to get onto that 3rd. But as it stands to be the case right now, looking at 2 flat-out laps from Burton before the end of this qualifying session. Here on round 3 of Season 2 of the Continental Racing League GT3 Teams Championship. 4 minutes coming up on then. Nearest to the line is the number 19 car. So we're going to catch on board here Michael Bonar of Stranger Team. One of 2 Fords registered to round 3 of the championship. There was a alarming number of sign-outs for the run in towards round 3, away from what was a stacked-out grid at round 2's doubleheader in Valencia. Nonetheless, we still find ourselves just shy of 20 vehicles in availability here on today's track. We'll be having 10 on one side, 9 on the other for the start of the race today as we head up into formation lap only a few minutes from now. Bonar across the line from 15th, stays where he is. Right now, needs to make about 52 thousandths. The car in front, now that bar has been significantly raised, as from behind him went the 656 of Eduardo Odoni, the fellow Ford on this grid, now leaps to the top 10, and as it stands by a single 100th over Hamilton, and by, as it stands, less than a 100th to Bell in front. Odoni could have a real spur of luck in the last couple of minutes here of qualifying. It's worth noting up in the order here, we have 3 cars at the head of the field divided by less than 0.2 of a second. Yuya Oya, Daniel Comendi and Smelly Hippie. 3 different manufacturers do battle, 2 of which technically related to one another. Audi and Lamborghini sharing the same 5.2 litre engine. This could be a civil war in the Volkswagen Auto Group. Number 11 is nearest. Let's go to catch on if we can here with Yuya Oya. 2:13. And we just see there a recent time improvement. So it's a 2:13.592 from what was a 2:13.9. New fastest time by half a second now over the nearest car being Comendi. Yuya Oya looks to have this one in a nice, neat bow. Sean Moore, nearest to the line, Everquick Racing, number 46. Down to the line he goes then from 13th. Where could he find himself after this last lap just gone? This will be his last attempt here in COTA before we get on into 70 minutes of wet racing for the first time in Season 2. Moore stays in 13th place. Nearest, the number 5, Daniel Comendi. Heading up through to turn 20, we go here with the Ferrari. So far, so good in today's session. Can he break a line in beyond the half-second margin off of Yuya Oya? He's got one more lap to make the difference here, because right now it's Oya's sessions to lose. Number 19 nearest. Going to locate the number 19 car. Bonar in 15th. Then the 656, so that's the two Mustangs down to the line here. First goes the number 19 from 15th up to 12th. Then for the 656, this is Eduardo Odoni. Down to the line from 10th. Where does he find himself now? Across the line he goes and stays where he is. So he too also has one more shot. 555 is nearest. We've seen complaints there in the chat by Freeman Sim Racing's Chase Hamilton over his frustration surrounding car positioning over the course of the qualifying today, complaining over conditions by the sounds of it there. Taylor across the line. One more shot here in quali. From behind him up to 7th goes Reese Humphreys. Comendi withdraws to the pit lane. So as far as things stand right now for Yuya Oya, unless this is to see yet another improvement, I'm not sure there will need to be one made here for that number 11. As he looks to have this one in the bag. 20 seconds left to go. So Oya will have one more shot in qualifying if he chooses to take it, and he does find an improvement, albeit a slightly less significant one in the last lap just gone, where the last one put him nearly half a second in the lead. This one only puts him a few hundredths over that, but that was all that mattered for him because Burton shoots all the way up to second, so maybe it's the milliseconds that count more so than the tenths here, because had it not been for that improvement, that would have been a hell of a lot closer between Oya and Burton. So we will find ourselves here in a bit of a high pressure environment between the 11 and the 57. Less than a tenth of a second to decide pole position between Mercedes and Audi Sport. 46 nearest to the line. Here comes Moore into the pit lane. Across the line a moment ago was the sound of a V10 engine by sounds of it there. I believe that might have been, yes, Connor Brennan to the top 5. So Audi in the top 5. They hold majority stake here. 40%, as it would stand, of that top 5 is under Audi's control, courtesy of Audi Sport Team Apex's Yuya Oya and Connor Brennan. Finn and the Irishman having a very solid synergy as a group so far. It's any surprise they're in the lead of the championship on the team's front. They have worked remarkably well together here in the slightly unorthodox pick of the Audi R8. Into the pits goes Michael Bonar, 13 for the end of this session. Approaching the line, though, is his fellow Mustang, Eduardo Odoni, still hungry for a chance to start in that top 10 from 11th, goes 8th at the end of this session. And as it stands there by 9 thousandths over Reese Humphreys, who, if I'm not mistaken, is back into the pit lane. So he won't have the opportunity to fight that one back. We can see, as it stands right now, this is one of the Vanguard cars and one of the Humbel cars making their way up through turns 17 and 18 there. Overlooking them is that 251-foot observation tower. One of these striking pieces of infrastructure surrounding the Circuit of the Americas. We see down towards the line here goes, believe looking at it, is Tom Stolmeyer. And following here is Samuel Bell. Stolmeyer from 16th, barrels down towards the line. That McLaren looked a little bit wiry on the run in towards the line there. Stolmeyer 14th, Bell in 7th, approaching the line from behind. Goes that of Yuya Oya, keeps the gap at 8 hundredths. So it's all or nothing now. Can the 57 find it? It needs to be perfection from Mark Burton, but he just couldn't find it. in that one last lap. 800th of a second is all that divides these two at the head of the field, but it's Yuya Oya on pole position. Audi Sport Team Apex take the cake then with 2 cars in the top 5, a 40% stakehold in the top 5 for the start of round 3 of the championship. That technically goes up to 60% when one includes the V10s, and that includes Lamborghini in 4th place. Otherwise, has been a dominant session by Oya, with Burton trailing closely behind. It was an old Western gunslinger draw. Where better to have one of those here in qualifying than in Austin, Texas? As we head up in towards round 3 of the championship. At the end of qualifying then, looking back into the regulations, 70 minutes of racing to come with a single mandatory pit stop, we're told, for tyres under the regulations for today's event. No news segment at the moment beyond the developments ongoing at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Plenty of new reveals from various different manufacturers. McLaren revealing the 788 HS, a brand new spiritual successor to the 765 LT. We also saw Red Bull finally reveal the RB17 to the public after their prototype car was shown at a private screening at the Goodwood Festival of Speed a few years ago. We were personally there to see it ourselves. It was quite the delight to be in that paddock. It was quite the star-striking experience seeing F1 drivers up close during the Red Bull celebration run. Also, new reveals came from Gordon Murray Automotive with, I believe, a car they're calling the Le Mans. It looks to be based off the T30, the younger brother of the T50, of which is, of course, based on the McLaren F1. Plenty new developments, though, coming out of Goodwood every passing day. One personal favourite of ours has been the presence of Subaru Motorsports USA and Travis Pastrana over at the Festival of Speed, with them bringing the Brattaroo, I believe it's called, the stunt truck based off of the Subaru Brat from the late 1970s, early 1980s. Bizarre little, technically 4-seater pickup truck, but it dodges American truck taxes when it's sold in America by having those 2 seats in the truck bed, where you almost take up a bit of an old school gunner's position in the back of that truck. Very, very cool. Waiting for the grid to form up then, Oya will have the highest expectations of all of this 19-car grid. 9 on one side, 10 on the other. You can see the weather has only got worse for the run in towards round 3 of the championship. Yuya Oya on pole position. Mark Burton in 2nd. Daniel Comendi in 3rd. Smelly Hippie in 4th. And Connor Brennan rounds out the top 5. Mark Taylor in 6th with Samuel Bell in 7th. Eduardo Odoni in 8th. Reese Humphries in 9th. Rounding out the top 10. Richard Claffey. Guy Rayfield in 11th. Chase Hamilton in 12th. Michael Bonar in 13th. Tom Stolmeyer in 14th. Sean Moore in 15th. Matthew G. Taylor in 16th. Colin Beattie in 17th. Rika Takanashi in 18th. And Richie Nielsen rounds out a 19-car grid here in what looks like apocalyptically high amounts of rainfall. Very out of place here on a track like the Circuit of the Americas, but it will serve as this oddball round of the championship, one of 2 wet races here in Season 2, the other of which being in a bit more of a stereotypical location for high rainfall, England, over at the Brands Hatch Circuit, which, much like the Circuit of the Americas, as previously mentioned at the start of this broadcast, will be joining the Formula E calendar. Of course, it will be, in that discussion, it would be the Circuit of the Americas, Zandvoort and Brands Hatch to join next year's Formula E calendar, as the Austin E-Prix, London E-Prix and Dutch E-Prix. But less on that and more on this. As the grid forms up, we were given just a moment ago the 30-second warning. We're on board with Yuya Oya, set to go head-to-head then with Mark Burton, both of which citing aspirations for the race lead and for the championship lead on the run-up towards Turn 1. In the absence of Carlos Disch. With Whale Racing out of the picture for round 3 of the championship, it leaves the throne vacant on many a front. Mercedes have yet to go undefeated, well, yet to go defeated, I should say, in this championship. Audi has put on a phenomenal performance in qualifying, but now it has to materialize over the course of an hour and 10 minutes worth of racing. We've just been given information there, and it's already trouble for one of the Audis of the Audi Sport Team Apex lineup, that being Connor Brennan, originally slated to start in 5th. The Irishman will start from the pit lane for reasons currently unknown. We've seen previous occasions have been a case where fueling concerns have come up in the way of these pit lane starts. The drivers have been unable to fuel the car up in time and have to start in the paddock. We do not yet know then fully the reason for Brennan's pit lane start. It's one that he's serving nonetheless. In terms of major overtaking spots here at the Circuit of the Americas, on a track that is rarely cited on calendars on Assetto Corsa Competizione for its split opinion amongst drivers and fans alike, there is little information to hand on where exactly to expect the bulk of action to come from. But from our estimates and previous experiences at COTA, keep an eye out for obviously turn 1, but then the run up through turn 6, the long right-hander through the sort of Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel section of turn 1. That long right-hander, very easy for drivers to run out wide. That leaves them vulnerable for the sharp left-hander following thereafter at turn 7. Here at turn 11 is going to be a major overtaking spot. We've seen this many a time. Can go very easily wrong because of how sharp that corner is. It is an acute hairpin left, so the drivers do have to be quite worried about positioning down through that section. Very easy to get turned around. Obviously down this back straight is going to be the stomping grounds for manufacturers like Ford, like BMW if they were in this championship more often, and of course for that of Nissan and, as it would stand as well, Mercedes. They have quite the sizable power on these straights here for the run up towards another major overtaking spot, turn 12. So a lot of it will be enriched around that turn 10 to 12 section, just coming out of the S's in towards that hairpin left, then down the back straight here to turn 12. Into turns 13 and 14, easy switchback spot here in COTA, funnily enough, though this is one often more cited for GT4s over the GT3s. Not impossible to see them go side by side down in this section. It loops back in on itself, does provide great overtaking opportunities, especially down here at turns 15 and 16. Super easy for drivers with the aptitude to boot, can set up a switchback in this area of the track up and around turn 17 and 18 and towards turn 19 and 20. Lesser sighted areas of the track for overtakes often relies more on user error to give the others advantage. So to summarize roughly here, keep an eye out for turn 1, turn 11, turn 12, turns 13 through to 16, and at a squeeze turn 19, of which we head down through now. So as we head down towards the line, 19 cars in attendance, 18 on track and 1 for the pit lane, 10 on one side, 8 on the other. As we make our way down towards the line here for Season 2, Round 3 of the Continental Racing League here at the Circuit of the Americas, at the home of the United States Grand Prix. Without further ado then, here in Austin, Texas for the first wet race. We are green and racing here in Austin after a bit of a delay there to the race start, already on the rush up towards Big Red at turn 1. It's a great start from the leading duo. Right behind them we see Hippie going side by side with Comendi, but he's way out wide at turn 1. Already trouble then for the Lamborghini, having dropped down now alongside that of Samuel Bell as they rocket down through turn 2. Meanwhile, a great getaway from the Audi up at the head of the field, making our way in through to the S's section here in Sector 1. Great start by Yuya Oya to hold off an early advance there by Mark Burton. Daniel Comendi holds on to a podium, with Brennan now just emerging from the pit lane as we speak. It was trouble way down the line for Matthew G. Taylor, now finding himself lagging behind the rest of the pack, 18th for the Nissan at this time. Up through here to turn 8 and 9. Audi leading over Mercedes, Ferrari third, Lamborghini fourth, another Mercedes in the top 5, Samuel Bell as we rocket out through turn 10 in towards our major crunch zone here at turn 11. This is going to be an interesting one from further down the order, but up in the top 3 doesn't look like much is going on there. The Audi keeps to a very conservative line up through turn 11 for the first lap of racing today. Looking further down the line, we see here from Richard Claffey at the back of the top 10, looks to set up somewhat of a switchback, but on the worst kind of car to do so with, because up on this back straight here, that is Ford's domain to play. And Eduardo Odoni will just rocket away with that position at the moment for control of 8th. You can see in the spray there up in front of Richard Claffey. Very little visibility to be found on the run in towards turn 12. He will look for it though, nonetheless. We see out there, that is Comendi. Comendi and Humphreys, I believe that is there. Big trouble at turn 11. Richard Claffey gets the leap on Eduardo Odoni, and I'm sure he's as surprised as we are to see that move work. Up in front, Taylor v. Bell. Let's go to catch on board with some of the battles going on further up the field. Mark Taylor goes toe-to-toe with Samuel Bell up the order. Hippie third, Burton second, Oya in the lead. Connor Brennan already catching up to the back of the pack. He makes his way up towards turn 12 as we speak. As we come off the exit here of turn 18 in towards turns 19 and 20, you can see the leading trio ahead. Right now, vaguely in the spray out in front. Looks to run wide there from turn 19. That's Samuel Bell. So the door's open here for Mark Taylor. Going for the inside at turn 20. The 555. Gets the leg there on the 21, parks the bus past the apex. Great move there from the Nissan. But it's not over yet. He's on the opening straight. The Mercedes is no slouch here. Neither is the Nissan. So it is going to be a who dares win scenario for the run up towards Big Red. You can see him already angling his way to the inside, trying to get inside Taylor's head, but he won't buckle this early in the race. There was trouble as well further down the line for the number 199 a moment ago, but that has now since resolved itself. You see out wide there, Bell really struggling in the wet conditions right now. That Mercedes is a little bit sluggish to rotate, and that might be the same problems met by that of Mark Burton in his pursuit of the race lead over Yuya Oya. Maneuverability will not be to Mercedes' aid, neither will it be to any of the front engine manufacturers, but it is worth noting here, there is a very clear difference in performance being noted between Nissan and Mercedes at this length of the race. That could come down to driver aptitude more so than anything, as Bell may not be as experienced as Taylor when it comes to the wet races. Of course, all of that speculation at this time, but it's pretty clear to see there is not everything all there with the Mercedes at this time. Some piece of the puzzle is definitely missing. Speaking of Nissan, we see here the one towards the back of the field was recent troubles for Matthew G. Taylor. 17 for the moment, but getting the leg up over the 199. That was Richie Nielsen who had trouble earlier on. You see here for Michael Bonar. He's being pursued by Reese Humphries, who was caught up in that incident a moment ago with Daniel Comendi here at turn 12. As we head up into this section, you can see side by side at the moment with Chase Hamilton for control of 9th place. The Porsche tried to get on the inside. The Mercedes holds him off there. Could that have been considered moving under braking? We see multiple drivers run out wide, so quite literally speaking here, through goes Hamilton once again. Up through to turns 13 and 14. Hamilton's done this, what, 2 times now this season? I believe it was first in Imola. Now gets the leg up over both Humphries and Bonar. Chase Hamilton with a point to prove. Out from turn 16 through to turn 17 and 18 here as we look up towards that enormous observation tower. One of the striking features of the skyline surrounding the Circuit of the Americas in the background there. That is the ever-equipped Ferrari in the wall, so nearly collected up by the rest of the pack. That, having a glance, was big trouble for the number 46, Sean Moore of Everquip. Spun out from turn 17 and 18. We see for Colin Beattie, number 311, currently squeezed in between Takanashi and Stolmeyer for control of 13th. Right now, locally trying to hold 14th place. Watching here, Burton in pursuit of Oya, Hippie in pursuit of Burton. That top 3 having separated themselves very quickly from the rest of the crowd after just 5 minutes of racing. A very vibrant start to things here. Wet racing, often viewed as the great equalizer in motorsports, has really rocked the boat on this grid. You see upcoming fight here, Taylor v Bell. Of course, we saw their move down at turn 19 and 20. It was a very well-placed move from the 555 Mark Taylor. So Samuel Bell would be a little bit red in the face about that one, letting a move fall in so easily. Another fight ongoing, Hamilton v Bonar. Of course, we saw Hamilton's overtake on both Bonar and Humphries. It's worth noting as well, getting up ahead of Reese Humphries now is Guy Rayfield in that top 10. Further out behind, Colin Beattie and Tom Stolmeyer. So CRT Team Comac versus, hang on just a moment here. We do note, yes, yellow flags. That is Sean Moore again. That's the second time he's been washed out here. And if this is supposed to be a special livery for the England football team, as we've been led to believe from the information passed on to us by Race Control, it's not looking particularly good for our fortunes against Norway tonight. Wet racing is supposed to be something we can do decently well, but the Ferrari is really struggling. We're back at the yellow flags, and the 46, by looks of it, is out. Sean Moore of Everquip Racing has had a nightmare here at the Circuit of the Americas. A shocking end then for Everquip Ferrari. Looking back up at the head of the field, Audi v Mercedes v Lamborghini on the podium. You see as well the still ongoing fight, Bell v Taylor, but I would like to add an extra variable to that mix there. The number 93 CRT Team Porsche, I believe it is, or CRT Racing Porsche, number 93 of Richard Claffey. You see here number 93 in pursuit of Samuel Bell of the Humble Racing team up in front. Claffey with his sights affixed on a top 5. As we drop in past the first 10 minutes of racing today, we are just given the confirmation there. The 46 Everquip Racing is now out of this race. It's also worth noting a recent drop of position. I believe there was the 311 Colin Beattie. Actually, no. Sorry, it was Michael Bonar. You see there, having dropped all the way down to 16th. Last time we saw him, he was fighting with Chase Hamilton, if memory served right. Chase Hamilton, 8th place at the moment. You can see it is not exactly breezy here for the Porsches. Well, yes, they have been quoted as the dark horse for wet racing. That is not without great difficulty. It is a very alien experience to drive the Porsche in the wet over any other traditional GT3 car, but if you can work well with the machine, it can reward you tenfold, and we're seeing that at the moment with Porsche having a double top 10 over the course of this race. They did see quite the downturn in drier conditions in Valencia last week, so this is their revenge chapter here in Austin. Claffey still fighting with Bell. Hamilton trying to catch up to O'Doney. He's going to have quite tough luck here on that back straight, keeping pace with the Mustangs on their home turf. And what is going to be, I believe, our only visit to America this season. But not the end of visits to Grand Prix destinations. Plenty of former and current Grand Prix destinations coming up on the course of this calendar. Looking back up at the head of the field. Ongoing fight now as Burton hemorrhages distance from Oya. It is a case where Hippie now has the chance to make it a V10 1-2. Volkswagen Auto Group grinning ear to ear for this one. Lamborghini now catching up to Mercedes. As this does represent one of the closer fights on track, the other being Comendi v Humphries. Now, these two did take a bit of a tumble down at turn 12 on the opening lap of today's race. So now to find them reunited, will there be any semblance of civility following their incident? We see there having to give it the full. Sterling Moss was the number 12 there to slide the car on through turn 19. There is so little grip to be found in sector 3 at the moment. It allows the Ferrari just to sweep on through. A little tap there to go alongside it as Comendi tries to take ground up and ahead of Humphries. Humphries has him set up for a switchback, and he'll hold the inside, trying to hold Comendi all the way to the right-hand side of the track for the run up towards Big Red at turn 1. The Mercedes holds the ground for the inside, so Comendi forced to get creative, and can he do it? Oh my goodness, what a move there by Daniel Comendi. Can we get that one on the replays just as we get up through turn 2? Oh my goodness gracious me. We could try and pull away the live footage there and just have a glance at this masterful switchback. My goodness gracious me. That's textbook. Put that one in a tutorial how to switchback. That is your prototypical switchback. But Comendi v Humphries, a brilliant move there. That's demonstrating Ferrari's check, sort of a trademark, I should say, not check mark, trademark maneuverability firmly on display there. Now, in terms of other fights going on, Bell is catching up to Taylor, and following Bell is Richard Claffey. We are in the midst here, the brewings of a three-way fight. Let's go to catch on board then with Samuel Bell, if we can go and catch the man in the middle. Fighting with this one here, Mark Taylor. Scrolling further back then to locate the Mercedes number 21. He sets his sights on the inside there at turns 13 and 14. Won't have it there. Now has to be a bit more creative for the run up towards turns 15 and 16. But you can see it's practically a ribbon of chrome here. There's very little dry line to find at the Circuit of the Americas at this time here. It's a track that is not often ever cited with wet racing, and it's for good reason. It's not one that has been designed for it. It combines so many different attributes of so many other circuits, but it was never sort of foolproofed for wet racing. It's often something they strictly avoid when it comes to motorsports. Now, not impossible to see wet races here at COTA, but they are, much like it would be to see a wet race in Bahrain, very rare to come across. Watching here with the Humble Racing Team's number 21 car currently riding in the spray of the 555 Nissan up in front of them. We're on board here with Samuel Bell in the fight for 4th place. Round turn 2, and we've seen from the Mercedes cars already, they have been notoriously loose on that rear axle. And with a very thin, dry line, if one at all, in this section, we see even the GTR in front is struggling to keep the car in that dry line. Up and around turn 7 in towards turn 8 and 9. And this sort of swaying motion on the car, it doesn't do them many favors because it creates this pendulum effect on the rear axle, going constantly left, right, left, right. At some point, that rear end is going to take too much load and the car will spin. We have already seen that happen for that of Sean Moore earlier today. That's what took him out in Sector 1. That and the curbs can be rather clingy in these wet conditions. Doesn't help at all for these drivers. So Bell, he's nearly a full second out behind Taylor on the run up towards turn 12. So Nissan still has quite a lot of punch in that back straight. VR38 DETT V6 twin turbo engine. One of the greatest V6s of the last 20 years. Going toe to toe with what has been one of the craftier decisions by Mercedes in the last couple of years, was the continued use of their 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V8 from the SLS platform when they moved on to the AMG GT line in the mid-2010s, around 2015, I believe. This model is the 2020 car. The front fascia based off the AMG Black Series, which is a fun fact, I believe the safety car for the United States Grand Prix, so all ties up nice, neat and tidy, unless Aston Martin's took the spot there, but I'm pretty sure they're stepping away. Out through turn 20. Of course, the United States Grand Prix, one of 3 American destinations on the Formula 1 calendar these days, with Miami and Las Vegas being the other 2. Semi-permanent or full street circuits. This one being the outlier as one built for the ground up for F1 racing. Oh, we see that big slide by Mark Taylor. He does hold it, but he does fall the position behind. Now down to 5th. It was a very cool looking drift, and had it been any other competition, I'm sure he'd be getting full marks for that one, but in a GT race, it ain't gonna help you. This was Formula Drift, it would be a broadly different story. Samuel Bell up to 4th place, Mark Taylor 5th. Richard Claffey's got a chance here to get up into that top 5. Leveraging now what is definitely going to be a knock to the confidence in the GTR. After what has been quite a successful round for the CRT GTR team in the last round that saw them rise all the way up to the middle of that top 10. You see though, it was that back straight where Nissan had such an advantage on Mercedes. We'll see though, now up in the clean air, what Bell can make of it. In the spray, that GTR's not going anywhere. You can see definitely already looking to anchor himself for the run up towards turn 12. So holding him off from the inside and towards turn 12. He'll be on the wet line under the brakes. So he has to be a little bit more gentle. Otherwise there you find yourself in a situation where there's nowhere left to go. Through goes Taylor and Claffey. Bell drops from the top 5. Unlucky for the Mercedes there. The writing was on the wall the moment he stepped off the dry line to defend that position. But you can't really fault him for trying. It was a do-or-die situation for the Mercedes, and he'd much rather try to defend the position than let it roll on by. But now he knows in the future, let them risk it, because it could be an easy position back on at turn 12. Looking down the line to see where other fights may be coming from. There is one notably close fight here. Hamilton v Comendi for 8th place at this time. Chase Hamilton of Freeman Sim Racing, racing for Porsche. On his way down through turn 19 and towards turn 20, up in front by about a second and a half is Eduardo Odoni. And then up ahead of them is the fight between Bell, Claffey and Taylor at this time. But looking here with Hamilton, this is the fight right now for 7th place. You can see up in front that Samuel Bell already setting his sights on Richard Claffey, so we get a bit of a view of that from up ahead in towards turn 1, I believe. Yes, Bell did just launch himself onto Claffey. As we continue to watch here the fight for 7th. And Bell does hold the move in through turn 2, so he really did just sort of lick the stamp and send it there. He was already frustrated having lost the position out. And now takes it out on the 93 in front, getting back up into the top 5. So watching here with Hamilton, as he is being hounded for position at the moment. Watching on here with the number 48, holding that fight for 7th, off of Daniel Comendi. Porsche and Ferrari, both of which can be unstable in the wrong conditions, and we are very close to those conditions, mind you. We've already seen for Ferrari a notable stability concern as we saw Everquip out of this race. But Comendi hanging around, looming under that huge rear spoiler on the Freeman Sim Racing number 48 Porsche. Heads up through to turn 11, I should say there. He gets the sharper of two lines, but ultimately less momentum to go along with it. Flat 6 versus V6 up in front of them by about a second and a half. 5.4 litre V8. Local to this race on the calendar. Forward to the sort of home ground heroes, and really that's a bit of a stretch of the imagination when you consider that car was built nowhere near Texas. In fact, it was built in, if I'm not mistaken, Detroit, as we see their trouble. Chase Hamilton fell to the same fate as we saw for Samuel Bell. We do note, I believe Richie Nielsen is the one in trouble at this time. The 199 brings out the yellow flags in a very similar spot to where we saw trouble for the Everquip Racing Ferrari. That now clears itself out. We're on board here with Taylor v. Bell, and this could be a rather interesting follow-up to their previous fight. On with Mark Taylor, fighting off Samuel Bell for fourth as we head up through to turn 19. You can see from the controls here on the Nissan, he's having to be quite gentle, but as we've seen in some other wet races this week, namely over at the Red Bull Ring, over on the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, he's having to saw that wheel to find any grip available. And that could be a double-edged sword for the GT3s. Are a lot more sensitive than the GT4s. You made the claim that the GT4s are a lot rougher around the edges. You can really afford to grip it and rip it, but this is not a GT4. I'm not sure how much of that was just the car slipping out or how much more of that was the Mercedes alongside him, but these two packed in like sardines for the run-up towards turns 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You can see that swaying motion knocks them off the dry line, and then it's a catalyst event for these drivers on whether or not they can regain the ground or slip out in the process. In towards turns 7 and 8. Turns 8 and 9, I should say. Now up towards turn 10. And the real danger zone of those curbs, you can see, is that really slick section of track just after it there on that painted section of concrete. There is no way to ford water out of that. There has been a lot of building standing water just after those curbs. If you hit that section at speed, there is a very, very high chance the car is going to spin. So that's what the drivers are religiously trying to avoid. That is what has already caught so many people out over the course of this race. Heading up then past what has been the first 20 minutes of racing. 50 left to go in round 3 of the championship. Let's go look up at the head of the field as there are some developments worth keeping note of. Actually, one of them here we just see for 15th. Stollmeyer v. Brennan. Now, Brennan had a real rough start today. We still don't know precisely why he started from the pit lane, but the number 10 has been on a mission to reunite with his teammate, Yuya Oya, up in the top 5. Now getting up and alongside Stollmeyer. Stollmeyer will have the better exit by having the wider line off exit. You can see the McLaren versus the Audi. This is barely competition on the straight line because that McLaren rockets away. It's only by being in the slipstream the Audi can hope to stay with. And we see here he's already thrown a lot of caution to the wind, so this one may be no different for that of Conor Brennan. Leaps for the inside, and I think there, just by having his elbows out wide enough, will take it away from Stollmeyer. Looking back up at the head of the field, though, as we quickly glance on past the ongoing fight for 4th. What is going on at the head of the field between Oya and Burton? 1.5 second gap. He's got clear line of sight out from turn 2 into turn 3. That Audi will constantly be in his line of sight for the next half of this race. Mercedes cars have been a rough and rowdy bunch for the run-in towards this round of the championship, and this could really be what takes them off of their currently unbeatable title. You see then for Yuya Oya, the Audi R8, the development and spiritual child of a long past vehicle, the Audi Quattro. Introduced in the 80s, the Audi Sport Quattro later became a homologation special for Group B rallying. It's what introduced the world to the compacted form of all-wheel drive in competition. Took rallying by storm to an accolade they could never recover from, with it now being industry standard. The Audi R8 continued that philosophy forward into the 2000s when Audi wanted to produce a supercar. Used a lot of the same technologies birthed by that project in the 80s. The inline 5 engine doubled up for cylinders to create a V10. And the Quattro all-wheel drive system became a functional aspect of most Audi models, including the Launch Edition R8 that originally shipped with a V8 engine. I believe the same one from the Audi RS4 of the same generation. A remarkable bit of kit as well, also featuring the Quattro all-wheel drive system. All of that traces back to Audi's standing legacy in motorsports for the last, well, when you include the Auto Union era, for a little over 100 years. I believe Auto Union, though, was, as the name would suggest, it was a union of multiple groups, Audi, Horsch, DKW, and Wanderer among them. Burton now closing into it. It's worth pointing out, two legacy manufacturers in German engineering, Audi and Mercedes, toe-to-toe here in America. We'll catch on with them later on, taking a glimpse in here with Humphreys v Hamilton. And the latest developments, of course, speaking of German engineering, we wouldn't be in this conversation without Porsche. 8 generations of Porsche 911, birthed from 3 generations of the Porsche family. 3 Ferdinands gave us what is the easily most recognizable sports car of the 20th and 21st century. You see, though, for Hamilton, he is really under some stress here, holding off Humphreys, heading up through the Big Red. Side by side then as Hamilton holds off Humphreys at this time. You can see him in the rear-view mirror. A constant sight for the Porsche, and the pressure getting higher and higher. Does he crack under the pressure being the real question? You can see really having to just rag the Porsche around where stability and precision have gone by the wayside, or otherwise outmoded concept here. Survival trumps everything for these drivers, and we're really seeing above and beyond some of the most feral drives all season long. This is a proper slice of old school motorsports we're seeing. This is harking back to bygone eras for endurance race cars, where the car would actively fight you back. These drivers are really seeing the worst aspects of the current generation GT3s. Driver we've not seen much of over the course of this race, the number 1, Rika Takanashi, 13th for S3NP. They're without their teammate Andre Koch for this round. 45 minutes coming up on left to go in this race. Comendi 7th. Taylor, as it stands here, 4th. Previously fighting with the car behind him, Samuel Bell. In terms of the closest fights on track, let's go and have a glimpse. Of course, Bell v Taylor is still one on the cards here. BD v Brennan, another. Brennan having recently come up to 15th. Ahead of Tom Stolmeyer, who now falls in behind Michael Bonar. And of course, the one at the head of the field, Burton v Oya. Following here with the Mercedes, Mark Burton, race winner in Valencia this season. Still has his sights set on another victory, but he's got to fight with this one. Yuya Oya, who has had an unstoppable drive with Audi today to hold this lead. A very rarely sought combination. COTA and rain. Moreover, COTA and GT3s at all, as outside of the GT World Challenge America Series and the FIA World Endurance Championship, the GT3s really don't have much ground to cover here in COTA. They find themselves in a rare first on this calendar as a minority. And we got the opportunity to check out some of the NASCAR side of things in terms of sim racing here at the Circuit of the Americas. It's a destination we'll be visiting not long from now with the upcoming NLRL Cup Series. We had the opportunity to sit down with some of the members of the 5-Star Esports NASCAR division. Some of those drivers, in fact, themselves, I believe, are collegiate eNASCAR players, and they were able to show us around the NASCAR version of the Circuit of the Americas. Now, in terms of its major changes as a circuit, it just cuts off that run past turn 7. So you come out of turn 6 and it hooks in to a almost switch through section, brings you out past what would be turn 6B onto the second half of the back straight. We watched them drive there in the current next-gen cars of the NASCAR Cup Series And it was quite a remarkable thing to see, the broad difference in what the track limits allow for across NASCAR and GT. GTs are a lot finer around the edges. Now, in actual GT World Challenge America, it's a little bit more liberally applied than the ones we see here. It is ultra strict. I believe someone, when they were designing this track, was actually using the F1 track limits when producing this circuit, not the GT ones, which is why qualifying can be quite the ache for these drivers in drier and grippier conditions. Whereas the NASCARs, of course, because they aren't necessarily intended for tracks like the Circuit of the Americas, they have a much looser around the edges mentality to track limits. Often you'll see at turns 19 and 20 during the race, it will be used as a continuous left-hander rather than two smaller, sharp lefts. They will just jump all the way out over the curb. It's quite an interesting thing to see. And you'll see the same kind of thing demonstrated at Watkins Glen, another circuit that finds itself on both GT and NASCAR calendars here in America. Away from the conversation at the head of the field and about the differences between various different series we see here, Takanashi v Brennan on the run up towards turn 20. The Ferrari having lost position at turns 19 and 20. The number 10 gets up to 13th. This has been a war at the back of the field here for Conor Brennan, having started from the pit lane, was originally starting in 5th before that pit lane start came upon him. And he has moved heaven and earth to find himself ever closer to a top 10. With the chances he has, 41.5 minutes just under left to go, there is still absolutely the chances for him to see a P10 or above by the end of this race, but he has got to knuckle down and drive like hell. Boyer still leads. And taking a look then as we get ever closer to the halfway mark of the session. As it stands right now, I think we're about 5 minutes out from the halfway mark of the race. Yuya Oya leads over Mark Burton in second, Smelly Hippie in third, and Samuel Bell in fourth. Right behind him is Mark Taylor in the 555. Richard Claffey makes 6th place from behind them. We can see actually catching up as well as both Claffey and Daniel Comendi, 6th and 7th. Eduardo Odoni in 8th, Chase Hamilton in 9th, and Reese Humphreys rounds out the top 10. Guy Rayfield in 11th with Matthew G. Taylor in 12th. Conor Brennan recently up to 13th ahead of Rika Takanashi in 14th. Have a glimpse up here, though, to see recent troubles for Mark Taylor. Now having dropped in behind, as it would appear, Bell, and also looking to possibly drop in behind Richard Claffey after a bit of a quarter spin for him off of turn 16. Into turn 19 we go, and the Porsche right behind him. Yeah, you can see there from the 93. How on earth does he keep that car facing in a straight line? Leaping to the pit lane 5 minutes before the midway, looking for an undercut strategy, goes Mark Taylor in the 555. This is the first of our pit stop runners. So hats off there. We've not seen any super early strategies today. A lot of the drivers have just knuckled down and got on with it. And what has been torrential downpour at the Circuit of the Americas. That moves Claffey to the top 5. Comendi to 6th. Odoni to 7th. Hamilton to 8th. Humphreys, by looks of it, going up to 9th. Guy Rayfield looks to move up into that top 10. Matthew G. Taylor could be moving to 11th. Yes, that does appear to be the case. Conor Brennan looking to move up into 12th. Takanashi to 13th. Beattie to 14th. Bodar to 15th. Of course, that still teeters on how quickly can the 555 get off the jacks. He will, as it stands, look to emerge around, as it stands there, 17th. As the 555, we've just got confirmation, has now dropped from his jacks. That's Mark Taylor on exit of the pit lane. In terms of the closest fights on track at the moment, Comendi v Claffey is one on the cards up towards turn 11. We'll go to catch on board with either side of that ongoing fight. We see here from the defending party, as there is note of a yellow flag. It's the number 12 in trouble. Go to catch on board to see Reese Humphreys in serious trouble there. The Mercedes now facing the wrong way. There was some complication for him out of, by looks of it, turn 8 into turn 9. Number 12 having fallen down there behind the 187, so forfeits by looks of it that 9th place spot to Guy Rayfield. So back in a green flag condition. So going back on to an ongoing fight. One of the closest among them on the field right now is Comendi v Claffey. Looking from the defending party's point of view, on with the Porsche. Number 93 defending 5th. That's soon to upgrade unless he himself chooses to come to the pits, as we've just got information to hand there. Mark Burton is in. Number 57 of the CRT Team Comac lineup is now in the pit lane. And who looks to join him in the pit lane? Doesn't look like many members, if any, of the current top 5. So with that upgrading now to 4th, the case here of Richard Claffey to continue to hold off an advance by Daniel Comendi. You can see that he does put quite a fair bit of distance there up over Claffey. Not over Claffey, over Comendi there. 2:16.116 in his last lap just gone is now his personal best. It was a 2:16.160 from Comendi behind, so a difference between those two of about 44 thousandths of a second. While insignificant on the grander stage, yes, it is still proving to be a positive trend, but it's this opening sector where the Porsche is bleeding so much time. Look at how loose the back end is on the 93 at this time. Getting a look on board with Claffey, you can see having to snap the controls back and forth. To be fair, it wouldn't be too out of the way to assume he might be on controller. We do know there is a number of drivers on controller in a fair few championships, and this is where they really do tend to struggle. In the GT3s. GT4, broadly different story, but GT3 requires precision, a finer hand of the wheel. You see, though, for Claffey, continues to hold his ground. Heading on to the back straight. That Ferrari ever so slightly faster in the straightaways. Up top speed at Monza at around 174 miles an hour. Over the Porsche, which gets up to about 170, 172. So, well, yes, we're not at Monza. What it does mean is the Ferrari is geared up for slightly higher stuff than the Porsche. That's what allows him to keep distance there. On the run through to turn 12, off the exit now into turn 13 and 14. Up ahead is Bell in the podium position at the moment, in the absence now of Burton, having taken an earlier pit stop. We do note a number of drivers now in the pit lane. Among them looks to be Humphries, Takanashi, and Stallmeyer. So more pit lane runs coming up there. Mark Taylor gets the leg up over Reese Humphries, having got into the pits before everybody else. Comendi v Claffey still rages on for 4th, and surely something has got to be done here for Richard Claffey. Highly unlikely that he chooses to stay out for much longer, if I had to imagine, with how loose that Porsche is. That really does come as quite the surprise to see both parties staying out. We see getting ever closer is Comendi at this time. Fear continuing to mount then in the 93 as the back end isn't getting any more responsive. Connor Brennan being intercepted by Mark Burton. Behind him there looks to be Matthew G. Actually, no, ahead of him looks to be Matthew G. Taylor. That's for currently 9th place then, as it would stand.
We are at the halfway mark, still a long way to go.
As you heard it there, now past the halfway mark, 35 minutes left to go in round 3 of Season 2 of the Continental Racing League GT3 Teams Championship. We're seeing now Comendi close in on Richard Claffey. Meanwhile, the number 1 remains in the pit lane. There was another yellow flag out at the same time for the number 48 car. That'll be for Chase Hamilton of Freeman Sim Racing. Meanwhile, we've just got confirmation Ferrari's Rika Takanashi is out of this race. Where is he going there? Richard Claffey. Where on earth was the Porsche off to on the run down towards turn 11? While at the same time there was trouble for the number 1 withdrawing from the race and the 48 with grip concerns in sector 1, Richard Claffey forgot where the braking zone was at turn 11, goes very nearly into those tech pros. Very, very bizarre stuff. Claffey now to the back of that top 5. That's a free and easy 4th for Comendi. Now going to look on board here at the head of the field with the number 11 reveals he's currently kept company by Humphries in the number 12 car. Meanwhile, Yuya Oya stays out. The Finn clearly a lot more confident in the wet with Audi than we previously would have given credit for. We thought that maybe Audi, like their sister car, the Lamborghini Huracan here we see of Smelly Hippie now 2nd in this race, would have suffered from a lot of the historic stability issues we had seen in the past. Quite the contrary, that number 11 has been set up so well. That thing is on rails in the wet. Watch it here in through this opening section. You can see where there is so little grip for the other cars, where the Porsche swings out wide and sways and threshes under its weight. The Audi is just cutting through like a hot knife through butter. It's remarkable to see it from the number 11. I mean, he's making this look easy. Wet racing, we've done wet racing before, personally. Myself, I've done wet racing with the GTs. It is not easy. It is far from easy. You are wrestling with a car several times more powerful than what you're normally used to. A car that will thresh under its own weight. A car that will buck and kick its way through a course. And he's making this look effortless. It's this very calm mentality behind the wheel of that number 11. He is totally one in with his machine. See here, heading up towards turn 12, as he gets down onto the brakes, you can see as he starts steering in, he starts lifting off of the brakes at the same time. There's a little bit of that string theory coming in. A little bit of trail braking. Of course, that is a necessary thing for these mid-engine cars to get the most out of them, to get that rotation these cars are so beneficial for. We do note another bit of trouble here. Yellow flag for the number 10 and number 57. That pertains at this time to both Connor Brennan and Mark Burton. Now, that is quite the wrench in the works, because this could throw away Burton's chances to intercept Oya in the pit lane. So back in the green flag conditions, now more than ever could be the most beneficial time for a pit lane run, but Oya refuses to leave. Refuses to leave this track and head into the pits. He knows he has to in the next 31.5 minutes. He's not going to be so hasty as to react immediately. A lot of this has been clearly well thought out by Oya, planning for any eventuality. That trouble between Brennan and Burton, it's a bit, I don't know, convenient, some could say. Now, definitely not pointing the fingers that this would be some kind of purposeful incident. It's just rather convenient that it has come up at this time for Oya. For Brennan, though, this is still quite a wrench in the works. He knows he's got to get past quite a fair few drivers on his pursuit of a top 10, and I would not take away this one incident as a, what would be the word, sullying the credibility of this performance. Brennan has still put on an absolute world-class drive here to find himself where he is. He knows he's going to have to face the music in the pit lane, much like his teammate Yuya Oya at the head of the race lead at the moment. Rayfield is in. Will Brennan follow in his footsteps? Down through turn 19 we go. Number 10. It's worth noting there was some variety of incident between himself and the 57. Now, I don't know whether or not it was just they spun at the same time or if they were involved with each other. Either possible during this time. We see Colin Beattie refuses to come to the pit lane. Same story for Michael Bonar. This is a closer fight here for 10th between the 19 and the 311. There's the one remaining fight during this time. With Rayfield in the pit lane. Vanguard Motorsports McLaren fields their second car to the paddock. And that will clear them for the rest of this race. 29.5 minutes left to go, so just a little under half an hour before the end of round 3 of the championship. If you're joining us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. BST, we go live for Season 6 Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. As we head to Mount Panorama, getting ever closer to the season finale, only a few weeks away. In the pit lane as well comes Richie Nielsen. Now, this is a curiosity, because Nielsen has already cleared himself under mandatory pit stop regs today. So was there perhaps fuel miscalculations on the 199? That would be usually the cause, the other being damage, but we can't see the front on that Lamborghini. So we just simply haven't an idea what has brought Nielsen to the pit lane this time around. Seeing the brewing of a fight here, Belvi Kemendi. This could be a rather curious one to go and watch on board with on here with Daniel Kemendi. See as well for Kemendi. He holds the fastest lap of this race so far as we get on up into the fight of third place. Belvi Kemendi at this time. That Mercedes, you can see, much like Another fight. Hang on just a moment. What was that on its side of the the side of the track there? I believe that might have been one of the sponsor boards. I think it's as we come out here. Yeah, well, what is that one doing on its side there? That was a very bizarre one. Watching here, still the fight for third. Oh, it's contact between Comendi and Bell at turn 11. And that's not looking great, but they look to resolve that by their lonesome, so giving him the position back. And by looks of it there, that looked to be a bit of desync. If we look at that on the replays here, and sadly, we only get the trailing half of it, but it did certainly look like desync between these two. 6.56, Eduardo Odoni during this time has now come in and out of the pit lane. We still wait then for updates up ahead from the number 11, Yuya Oya, who continues to lead the charge for Audi Sport Team Apex here at the Circuit of the Americas. Out through turn 20 went the number 11 onto another lap, so to our understanding, still no anticipation of a pit stop on the last lap just gone. Number 12's in trouble, and I believe that would be for, if I'm not mistaken, that would be for Humphreys. Out of turn 20, now falling in behind the number 420. As for these two, they're about to come up right onto the scene of the incident there, but the number 12 has got back up and running, to our understanding now, so out through turn 20, onto lap 19. Difference in line there, can invite in Comendi to come and have a go for third. On the opening straight then, onto lap 19 of this race. 26 minutes left to go at the Circuit of the Americas, side by side for third. Comendi versus Bell. Leaping for it goes the number 5. He's got the better line on the run in, and that leap over the curbs from the Mercedes didn't much help that of Samuel Bell, but it keeps him close enough for the run out of turn 2. Now in the dirty air, things could be a little bit more troublesome for the Mercs. We've already seen the back end to get loose in clean air. Dirty air can't be, I imagine, much better. Half a second between the 21 and the 5. Up through turn 6 we go, in towards turn 7. And there's that weird sideways Fanatec board on the left-hand side. Someone's clearly kicked that one up. You can see in the dirty air where he's not had stability problems. He's just had a lack of grip over the front axle. It's not been able to help him out. You can see now, having put 1.3 seconds into that third place, Comendi just rockets away from Bell. Back on with those two a little later on, taking a look then across the track to see where the nearest fights may be coming from. Burton v Brennan is one on the cards at the moment, the 10 and the 57. They were in an incident not too long ago in this opening section of the track. Still not entirely sure what did happen in that first incident, but we find them here. Another yellow flag is out. It's actually, by looks of it there, I believe the 199 in trouble, yes. Now getting back up and running, Richie Nielsen. Back in the green flags, just under 25 minutes left to go. Back on here, Burton and Brennan. 6/10 and closing. Let's go to catch on board if we can here with the Mercedes. Get a view in with that of Mark Burton. Fighting with Connor Brennan for 5th place. Just got information there. Samuel Bell of the Humbell Racing Team is now into the pits. Number 21 is in. So too is Smelly Hippie of Stinkin' Rich. So 2 of that top 5 now in the paddock. The number 420 and the number 21 are in. I believe staying out is Oya and Comendi. Through turn 17 and 18 on this follow through to turn 19. Watching here with Burton. Will Brennan yield to the pit lane being the question? Now seeing more and more of the top 5 get into the paddock. Could this be an easy transfer to the top 5 for Mark Burton? Not on this lap, it won't be, because Brennan looks to stay out. Through turn 20 we go. Number 420 released from the pit lane, so very quick stop there for Hippie. In and out for new tyres. Very, very quick there. Stinking Rich look to maintain a podium in today's race. It's looking very hopeful for the 420 at this time. Watching with Burton following Brennan through turn 1. A very odd line for those two. More and more drivers now into the pit lane. We've just seen the 888 come in, so that'll be for Matthew G. Taylor, and the 311, if I'm not mistaken, of Colin Beattie, also in the paddock now. Number 420 out in front is along with the 199, so that's two of these stinking rich Lamborghinis ahead of these two here for the fight on what is now, actually speaking, 4th. You see there up in front, that's Richie Nielsen, having yielded to one side from turns 9 and 10 to let these two on by on their newfound fight for 4th. What started as a fight for 5th place. The number 11 is in. We've just got information there. Yuya Oya is in the pit lane. And the number 5 right now, reports would show Comendi on his way to turn 19. Will he be following the 11 in, or will he be taking a gamble to stay out? As it stands then for the Ferrari, it's going to be the latter. Daniel Comendi staying out. Meanwhile, Brennan v. Burton enters a new chapter here, getting up past Hippie, who is rather curiously in the pit lane. Now, if I seem to recall, the 420 was released from the paddock not too long ago. This does serve as a very grim turn of events here for Hippie. He held the fastest lap. The 420 is now in the paddock, having hemorrhaged several positions. He could even drop, as it stands, from the top 10. What has happened here for the number 420? He seemed surefire for a podium. What on earth? Oh, no. We've just got word there. What happened for him? He's been given the old classic Ferrari treatment. He's come in, and the pit crew has given him dries. We've just got word from him there. He's come into our Twitch chat to let us know he's been put on dries. So he's come back into the pits to go onto the wets. As the strategy originally intended, there's been quite the snafu in the paddock. The stinking rich at this time. And he has gone in, come out on dries, and met all manner of trouble along the way. We see here Brennan v. Burton now enters a new chapter with Burton ahead of Brennan. Brennan still yet to come to the pits. He is among the last on this grid to be doing so. Comendi, who leads the charge at the moment, still yet to have come to the pits, but we saw recently was Yuya Oya, Conor Brennan's teammate at Audi Sport Team Apex. We see now that he's in the clean air, that Mercedes is really able to let loose here in Sector 1. The Audi tries it can, struggling to stay with 0.8 of a second. Now we must consider as well that difference in tyre longevity. Fresher tyres here for Burton's car, older tyres for Brennan's, and Brennan has had to do a lot more work from the back of the field, making his way up through to where he currently stands. And Brennan looking for somewhat of a gamble under strategy today. If I had to take a wild guess, he either comes in on this lap now that he's forfeited position and knows that it's not going to be as easy to stay with, or alternatively he's going to try and ride the wave and see how long he can go before the tyres either give out or the car is just in an inoperative condition. 420 now leaving, but that has been a costly mistake under strategy today, and that's a rare one we get to report on here. That was dry tyres that went on to Hippie's car. He's come back into the paddock now on his way out. He's 16th on this grid. That is gut-wrenching for him when you consider that otherwise would have been a podium had they been the wet tyres from the get-go. A day to forget for Lamborghini. For Audi, they are 19 minutes away from possible jubilations today. Number 5 has stayed out, so we see here from the number 11, Yuya Oya, the one set to inherit the race lead, has got between himself and the possibility of a first win of the season just under 19 minutes here at the Circuit of the Americas. Taking a look to see where the nearest fights may be coming from, and also just quickly seeing here. So choosing the first strategy out of the two we suggested, he's come in sooner rather than later. Conor Brennan now in. As we were going to locate the nearest fight, we do see one here. Bell v. Claffey. Out from turn 19 to turn 20. We're going to catch on with them in a moment's time. We still take note, though. There are two more cars yet to see the pit lane. Michael Bonar of Stranger Team and Daniel Comendi in the number 5. So let's go to catch on board of the ongoing fight between Richard Claffey and Samuel Bell. Up through to turn 1. We're on board here with the number 93. On with Claffey. CRT Racing Porsche versus Humbel Racing. Currently then on the fight for 6th. Now that he's on fresher tyres, you can see Claffey has got much more spring in his step when that Porsche was fighting him before. Now, don't think this is exactly the picnic by comparison. It is still quite a rough ride here in the 992. We say it's a dark horse for wet racing for both good and bad reasons, because where it can be one of the better cars on the grid, it can also be one of its most fierce in the corners. And not for the driver being attacked for position, more so the driver being attacked from inside the car. Trying to look his way to the inside. He was getting inside Bell's head for a moment there. You can see Richie Nielsen's up in front of them, just giving them position there. Out from turn 11, onto the back straight. You see that looming off in the distance as well was that massive observation tower. Now, that's one of 2 major skyline features here at the Circuit of the Americas. The other, which sadly we can't see today because of the weather, is a 130-foot tall flagpole bearing one of the largest flags in the state of Texas. Normally brandishes the flag of the state of Texas, the Lone Star flag, as some may call it. Otherwise would also brandish the American flag, both of which are 40 by 80 foot and weigh 86 pounds each. They weren't lying to me when they said it's always bigger in Texas, because my goodness, that is quite the scale. We do see during the conversation now a bit of a step out of line for the number 21. That does bring Claffey right back into the mix, and this is soon to upgrade to a fight of 5th, because in front, Michael Bonar of Stranger Team Ford is now in. So soon now to pop up into a fight for 5th. The top 5 clash. We also see further down the line, Chase Hamilton brings out the yellow flags. There has been a very recent drama there for the Freeman Sim Racing 48. Hamilton, who is still in the top 10, possibly to see 8th on this lap if he can get a hurry on here past Michael Bonar. Had a spot to bother off the exit of turn 18. Catching back on board then with these two as we now see their gap advance to 1.4 seconds. Richard Claffey having a bit of trouble on the run in towards lap 23 today. Coming up on a quarter of an hour left of racing. We also noted during this time, Comendi had come in and then out of the pit lane. So Oya now leads over Burton. Comendi in 3rd for Ferrari. That is quite the accolade here. He has been now the one spearheading the charge for Ferrari's continued tenure in the top 5. It is going to be a tough one for that number 5 now in the absence of both Everquip and S3NP. Taylor in 4th. Bell rounds out the top 5 behind him as Claffey. These two are among the most recent battles on track, but you can see these two are fighting more against the elements than they are against each other at times. And all of this pushing and shoving is inviting in the one behind them here, Eduardo Odoni in the Ford Mustang number 656. Behind them, Hamilton in 8th, Rayfield 9th, Brennan in the top 10. We said it was possible for Connor Brennan. And now we're seeing pen meet paper on the chances of him to go even further up from 10th. And looking at the chance right now of 9th with Rayfield in front by 1.7 seconds and closing in towards turn 11. Bonar leaves the pit lane then by looks of things in 12th place behind Matthew G. Taylor. You can see behind him there is Colin Beattie. 17 drivers left in this race, 14 minutes left to go. A brutal outing here at the Circuit of the Americas, but wet racing does this no matter the destination. The strong may survive on wet races like these. It's been quite the emotional roller coaster for some during today's event. We do see the ongoing fight for Brennan v Rayfield. Now this is going to be a curious one to go and catch on with, cutting away from the fight between Claffey and I believe it was Bell at the time. Yes, going to catch on with the Audis. Connor Brennan. Sights are fixed on 9th place. He has clawed through that field, moved heaven and earth, through hell and high water to find himself in the top 10. And now an extra position may be within his grasp, but it's there for the taking. He just has to reach deep. Rayfield has had a very solid race with McLaren. They can be a bit of a topsy-turvy manufacturer in the wet races on ACC. But they have held strong. The Vanguard team, one of the sole proprietors for McLaren's presence on this grid, having done well under the circumstances. Rayfield in the top 10. Stallmeyer having had some trouble today. Looking for the inside. We see Brennan has been very quick to jump onto the opportunity to fight with his fellow driver. And he's commanded himself along this grid with a very quick, snappy attitude towards these fights. If he knows he can take the ground for position, he is going to go for it. He's not going to sit around and wait for a mistake to fall into the lap. So he's got a very all or nothing mentality we've seen today, and it has worked more often than not to his favor. Up in front, more trouble for Richie Nielsen off the exit of turn 10. That's resolved itself, so no calls yet for yellow flags for the Lamborghini. See there, gunning for the inside, but look, straight line speed, it's not going to be on the Audi side here. That McLaren, capable of around 100, I think it's about 173, 174 miles an hour on the straights at Monza. That's been our frame of reference for speed for the longest time here. It does show when really pushed towards it. What are these cars geared out for? See the Audi fidgets under the brakes there, very lively. That number 10 down through to turn 12. See them for Conor Brennan out through turns 15 and 16, now to turn 17 and 18. See there the slight slip from Rayfield out in front onto that wet part of the follow through at turn 17 and 18, now to turn 19. Easy to run out wide in this section, as we've seen from a few drivers before, and the Audi snaps itself over towards that right hand side. On the run up towards turn 1. You're seeing this growing confidence under the brakes there from Brennan. He's very, very late to the brakes down at turn 1. He's same story down at turn 11, just before the back straight, and that's what's keeping him with the McLaren at this time, where he falls behind in the dirty air. Anywhere that the McLaren is able to put distance on him, he can make it right back up under brakes. 10 minutes coming up on left to go, so it's really a case now. From the point of view of the race leader, the number 11 of Yuya Oya having crossed the line a moment ago, we are now in the end game. We are looking at about 4, maybe 5 laps of the squeeze before the end of today's event here at the Circuit of the Americas for Season 2, Round 3. Poking his nose to the inside, and there, that's the mistake he's been waiting for off of Guy Rayfield. Side by side. Now it becomes a drag race, and he's got the slightly better run of things, but in the side draft on the Audi, the McLaren will be able to stay close. The number 10 sacrificing some stability here to go onto that wet portion of the track to keep that McLaren away. Down towards turn 12, but he will be a victim of his own successes here, because staying on that wet line makes him far less stable, I should say, under the brakes. We saw that Audi fidget before under the brakes at turn 11. Yellow flags out there for the 656. Eduardo Odoni in jeopardy from 7th. That could be 3 positions coming up for Chase Hamilton, who now just makes his way through turn 17 and 18. That is now cleared out to green flags as the 656 has got back up and running. In front, Richie Nielsen, you can once again see giving space to these drivers as they work their way on through. Conor Brennan now taking up the position of 9th. Into turn 19 we go. Being the trailing one in a fight, one-on-one situation is usually the easier position, because all you can do is settle in, follow the line of the car in front, and not make the mistakes they do, and it's usually a one-way ticket to a position when they inevitably fumble. But being the leading car, there's a lot more expectation here, because there's nowhere near as much you can do to predict what the other driver is going to be thinking of, what they're going to be planning to do in these corners. You can see Rayfield picks up right where he left off by now in the trailing line of Brennan's Audi. Runs things a little bit more shallow in the corners. Yes, there is that performance drop by being in the dirty air, but it's a lot calmer from Rayfield. Brennan now has the hard job. He's the one leading that fight. He's the one defending that position. The variables are completely different between attacker and defender when it comes to a one-on-one fight. Through to turn 11. You can see he's on the wet line there. That's the same mistake made by Guy Rayfield, which he doesn't make on that corner now. So he does find himself with a fair chunk of distance made up, and now in the slipstream on the Audi, making his way up the back straight here. We'll stay along with. We'll catch on with those two later on. We see here from Yuya Oya's point of view as he makes his way through Sector 1. Now passed into Sector 2. We do note yellow flags there. It was for one of the Nissans. That is, I believe, yes, Mark Taylor. Now having dropped to the back of the top 5, could even drop out of the top 5 entirely after a slip up at turns 19 and 20. We're in green flag conditions, 7 minutes left to go. Only a few more laps then from the leading number 11 Audi, who looks destined for his first win of the season in these wet conditions. Makes you wonder, even if the Whale Racing team had been here today, would they have been able to do much better than the 57 of Mark Burton? That was their main heel in Valencia. In these wet conditions where the Mercs really do seem to have the odds stacked against them. Could they have done any better? We've seen wet performances from Deesh and Galaxy before, many of which very impressive. That Mercedes at this track, it seemed like a combination that really would not have worked out too well. It was their kryptonite, perhaps. Towards turn 11 we go, following here with Mark Taylor, CRT GTR number 555, as he hunts down Samuel Bell for 4th. 0.9 of a second, but he's got to keep weary to the car behind him there, closer to him than he is to Bell. 0.7 of a second, now 0.8, so that gap drops away between himself and Richard Claffey as we head up towards turn 12. Heavy under the brakes there as he continues to pursue the Mercedes up in front of him. Better exit of the two from turn 12 into turns 13 and 14. In this area, continuous right-hander, double apexed corner. He's got to play things very close to the chest here. You can see just how thin the dry line is. He can't really afford to be stepping too far off of it. Otherwise, he ends up dropping more time than he gains. You see there, the Mercedes just staying on that dry line. It's been able to put that distance back up on him. And he worked so hard to gain up through turns 12, 13 and 14, but that looks to be coming back positive for him here. Off the exit of turn 17 and 18, having run out wide the Mercedes. Slipping there into turn 19, he's out wide, so the 555's got the opportunity, the door's open, can he go for it? In towards turn 20, trying to cover him off as the number 21, in through to turn 20, the 93 behind, still close at hand, in what is a three-way split for 4th. Fastest of the three was that of Claffey, by 499 thousandths to Mark Taylor. Up towards turn 1 we go. Number 21 still being pursued now. What is a double-pronged defensive from the 555 and the 93. CRT's Richard Claffey and Mark Taylor in their two separate divisions of CRT Racing Porsche and CRT GTR hound down on the Humble Motorsports number 21. As we close in on the last 4 minutes of racing. From the number 11's point of view, we are heading up into that penultimate lap. Not quite yet the final, but we are getting very close now to the checkered flag here in America. We do note what was originally a fight for 4th now evolves to a fight for 5th, as we see Richard Claffey really get the burners on after turn 10. Nearly had the opportunity to siege the 555 at turn 11. Ran out a little bit wide there for the run in towards the back straight. The 555 still holds his ground, but he is much further away from Bell than he is from Claffey. Claffey acutely aware of this. Maybe looking now to get his elbows out and put a bit of a wedge between himself and his fellow CRT car. It would be counterintuitive to their wider goals as a team, but these are separate divisions going head to head with one another. multiple different CRT wings involved in this championship. We do see now the fight for fourth has properly re-engaged. Taylor versus Bell. Through to turns 15 and 16. He's got to be careful there. That little trapezoid on the inside of that curve. Very easy to miss. Difficult to make out the finer details in those curves when you're heading up through them at the speeds these drivers are going at. He's sliding a little bit there was the Porsche. 0.8 of a second, 0.7 as they round turn 19, then back up to 0.8. Between these three, heading up through to turn 20 onto lap 29. You can see the light from that Porsche reflecting in the rear bumper on the Nissan. That's how close these two are to one another at this time. Heading up in towards lap 29 now, up towards turn 1. Still both of them in pursuits of the 21 out in front of them. And really hats off here to Samuel Bell being able to hold off this kind of offensive from behind. Still holding a very confident P4. That will do wonders for Humbell. You see back in through to sector 1 then the CRT cars give chase from behind, but you can see the Nissan, it takes one step off of that dry line and it's just an ongoing chain reaction really, where every corner gets worse than the last, and now we find ourselves 1.5 seconds between Bell and Taylor, and all it took was one tiny slip. Looking around the track to see where the nearest fights are coming from. There is one going on behind BDV Stolmeyer for 14th place. Colin Beattie, second half of the CRT team Comac lineup, the other being Mark Burton. Fights with the other half of Vanguard Motorsports, Tom Stolmeyer. And hang on just a tick here, we do have a yellow flag out. I believe it's the 199, just moving over there to allow Mark Burton on through. So false alarm as the number 11 does head on in to their final lap. Yuya Oya is one lap away from his first win of the season. The Finn has waited plenty long enough here, having played second fiddle to Mercedes. If there could be any driver, I should say, to break what has been an indomitable stride by Mercedes AMG in the early rounds of this championship, I had it on pretty good authority, it would be this one. We'll see him down towards the checkered flag, but don't be so certain on his victory. He still has to face off against the Circuit of the Americas in conditions like these. Rarely ever cited one last time. We'll catch on with him, hopefully, at the checkered flag. The next time we see him, we see for Claffey v Taylor v Bell. Heads up into its final lap of racing there. Big slide from the 93, very nearly onto the rear bumper of the 555 in front. Further down the line is Brennan v Hamilton for 8th place. And up in front, that's Eduardo Odoni with heavy damage. What has gone on there for the 656? That could be 2 positions out for Odoni. He pulls to one side, so through goes Hamilton. Through goes Brennan with him. They head up into their last lap on a recently upgraded fight for 7th. And what has been a disastrous turn of events for Ford in their efforts to regain relevancy in the Manufacturers' Championship, for Odoni to gain a foothold in the top 10. He will find himself limping his way onto a last lap here, with Rayfield in pursuit, only a single corner away. Could the writing be on the wall for Eduardo Odoni? He's got one more lap to see himself through to a possible top 10. Could he be looking at 9th? Could it be 10th? Only time will reveal the answers. We're on board here now with Yuya Oya. This one has delivered on an unstoppable performance for Audi Sport Team Apex. This one has been a drive of the ages here for the number 11, making his way down through to turn 19. A brilliant performance all round today from this one. Has made the wet race look easy in the Audi R8 of the Audi Sport Team Apex lineup. Heading up through to turn 20 then. The checkered flag awaits his arrival for a brand new race winner. Mercedes dethroned by Audi. It's Yuya Oya to win in the Circuit of the Americas. A brilliant performance by the Finnish talent. Unstoppable form in the R8. That one, it just looked effortless from him today. Absolute bliss from the number 11. Very well done then to Yuya Oya. Second place looks to be for that of Mark Burton, so still keeping a strong performance here. Looks to be moving up and ahead of Carlos Dish in the championships. We'll see, though, on the run in towards round 4 of the season. And looking here, Ferrari look to claim upon a podium here in the Circuit of the Americas. Daniel Comendi has been on a world-class drive in the number 5. The last of the remaining Ferraris on today's grid. In the absence of Everquip and S3MP, it's Comendi to see Ferrari to a podium. A tremendous drive there in the 296, the last of the Ferraris on today's grid. Bell looks to hold his ground up and away from Taylor and Claffey. And this has been world-class defence by Humbell to see themselves to a top 5. Samuel Bell holds off Mark Taylor for 4th. Taylor to see 5th, Claffey to see 6th. Chase Hamilton v Connor Brennan now in its final chapter. We saw them head up into their last lap a moment ago. Connor Brennan having fought from a pit lane start to find himself where he is today here, fighting for 7th at the end of round 3. Chase Hamilton having been through the ringer today himself. The Freeman Sim Racing number 48 fends off the number 10 into turn 19, but who will emerge in 7th? Will it be the 48? Will it be the 10? With the 10 out wide, the writing could be on the wall here for Connor Brennan. Rounding turn 20, a great performance then to hold his ground. Chase Hamilton will see the top 10. 7th place with Brennan behind in 8th. A valiant performance by both parties there heading into the last lap of today's race. And to see 9th place, Eduardo Odoni quickly followed from behind there by Guy Rayfield. Waiting to see to the line, Matthew G. Taylor for 11th and then Reese Humphreys for 12th place. But what a performance it has come to be today for that number 11, Yuya Oya. A brand new race winner, your 3rd new race winner this season. We've seen wins for Mark Burton and Carlos Dish. A new name enters the ring, and Audi get their 1st of the season here after what has been so far an undefeated streak in the early rounds of the series by Mercedes. They have met their match today with the masters of loose surface racing. Now, while it may not have its 4-wheel drive system, there's plenty enough beneath the skin, tracing back to its ancestor, the Audi Quattro, for that R8 to have made this effortless today. Yuya Oya sees his 1st win of the season for Audi Sport Team Apex. And the final result in through there, Mark Burton 2nd, Daniel Comendi in 3rd. 3 different manufacturers on the podium. Samuel Bell in 4th, Mark Taylor in 5th, Richard Claffey in 6th, Chase Hamilton in 7th, Connor Brennan in 8th, Eduardo Odoni in 9th, Guy Rayfield rounds out the top 10 for McLaren. Matthew G. Taylor in 11th, Reese Humphreys in 12th, Michael Bonar in 13th, Colin Beattie 14th, Tom Stolmeyer in 15th, Swelly Hippie in 16th, and Richie Nielsen in 17th. A day to forget then for Stinkin' Rich, and a day to forget also for Everquip and S3MP with 2 DNFs, Rika Takanashi and Sean Moore. Wow, what an exciting ride it's been here on the first wet race of the season on the Continental Racing League GT3 Teams Championship. Taking a look then at the road ahead for our drivers today. Their next stop will be in Zandvoort on July 18th, later next week. Same time as today as they head on into round 4 of the championship. Heading to Zandvoort for a 70-minute race like the one we've seen today, but in much drier, fairer conditions, as opposed to what has been a hellish landscape here in the first wet race of the season at the Circuit of the Americas. A great performance then. Very well done to Oya, our new race winner for today, and very well done to the podium sitters, Burton and Comendi. 3 different manufacturers there on the podium. Well, that's all from us here on TRTN. If you're joining us on tomorrow, we'll be live 6:30 p.m. BST, Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN, live from Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia, as we head into the twilight chapters of what has been a fantastic season of racing over on the Sunday League in Season 6. That'll be tomorrow evening. Until then, that's all from us here on TRTN. Your next broadcast from us on the Continental Racing League is scheduled to come up on Round 4, July 18th, 7 o'clock p.m. BST. Same as today. That's all from us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.